had this dream as a boy of sailing a boat around the world. I did not see the racial implications of being black, wanting to break into a sport which is predominantly a white man and rich man's game. Being black in South Africa during the apartheid era was a frightening period. But I wanted to sail so badly, I would not take a no. So I knew I had to go and design my own boat. I had to build my own boat. People looked at my boat and said, that thing will never cross an ocean. I was approaching hurricane strength winds. I would hold my breath, and sometimes I couldn't hold my breath long enough. I fought to the very, very end. 2 days later, I saw Cape Horn. I could not believe that I had actually just achieved it. I had just sailed around the world.
I was a child with a dream. I was a boy who tried the dream. I have now become a man who has succeeded at the dream, and you are part of my success. I want to say thank you very much.
Good afternoon and welcome. We all know people who carry baggage. You know those folks that say, poor me, I can't do this or I can't do that? Well, I don't want to talk about baggage. I want to talk about a treasure chest. Yes, a treasure chest. The only difference between baggage and a treasure chest is in the content. And for me, that choice of content is driven by a philosophy. In my life, there are no barriers. There are only solutions. And hence, I have 3 advantages. Now just bear with me as I explain them. Advantage number 1. I was born black in apartheid South Africa. Based on the color of my skin, it was determined what hospital I could be born in, what neighborhood I could live in, what school I could attend. Apartheid was a harsh period in the history of South Africa. Advantage number 2. I was born in a working class family. My father was a commercial diver, but sadly he became an alcoholic and could not hold down a job, eventually ending up as a security guard in a factory. My mother was a school teacher, and we know school teachers don't earn much money. Security guards hardly earn anything. So I grew up on the borderline of poverty. Advantage number 3. You see, I can walk today, but I don't take this for granted because I could not always walk when I was a youngster. When the big guy upstairs was handing out hip sockets, I was not paying attention. And hence, in the left hip, where we should have a ball and socket joint complete, I lacked the cup. And so I went through 3 surgeries. That last surgery left me with a body cast from my ankle to my chest. Now, you hear me speak about 3 advantages, but you just heard me speak about prejudice, economic hardship, physical disability. You're shaking your heads and you say, this guy's crazy. Those are not advantages, those are huge disadvantages. Well, let's go back to that philosophy. In my life, there are no barriers. There are only solutions. That became the fundamental driving factor around who I am. And my mother said to me, son, life isn't always fair. If you can overcome the prejudice, if you can overcome the economic hardship, if you can overcome your physical disability, then whatever else life throws at you, you shall find a way to overcome that too. And that, through our attitude, is how we turn our disadvantages into advantages. That is why I choose to carry a treasure chest. I've put my experiences, all the positive and negative experiences, as the treasures that have helped me to make a journey through life. Now, before I can take you on the journey, I have to go back in history to a woman I call Mom. This woman who not only gave me my values or my life, but she was a leader, a woman who set things apart in South Africa. You see, my mother was a brilliant student, and she ended up being awarded a scholarship to go to university. And there at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, she continued to be a brilliant student and hence was awarded another scholarship, this time to choose any university in the United States. She chose to go to Syracuse University in upstate New York. And she arrived in this country via steamship to attend university, where she did her master's in education. When she graduated, it was 1948. Very few women in South Africa, very few women in the United States attended university in that era. But she was a trendsetter, and she was offered, after graduating, opportunities to teach at the Ivy Leagues of the United States. And she turned them down to go back to South Africa because she believed in education for all South Africans, irrespective of race, color, creed, or sex. Now, this made her a subversive in the eyes of the government, the apartheid government. And so she was fired for her speeches at the University of Cape Town. And she became a teacher trainer. And there she founded the Teachers League of South Africa with a few other members. And they were banned. They were classified as a radical organization. And she was then put under house arrest. Some of her colleagues went to Robben Island, where Mandela served in later years. When she came out of house arrest, the government thought they would reduce her by allowing her to now just be a teacher, a biology teacher. And the only job she could get was at her alma mater, Livingston High School. And they thought they had silenced her. But what the government did not realize was they put her in the most powerful position to change lives and to shape a future. Here she had fertile young minds to influence about the value of education, the application of knowledge in the realization of any dream. And it's truly, success is about our application of information. And this is what you're about. In the world of technology, you are dealing with information and how we process that into all the various applications that make technology companies and our industries and our non-technological related industries actually function. In other words, our world. My mother was a part of that early catalyst in education. And she believed that all children should have an opportunity to excel. Now, she used to tutor me as a kid because I'd missed a lot of my schooling being in hospital. But she also tutored for decades before I was born some brilliant students. And at a certain time of the year, she would then go to the University of Cape Town and fight with them for slots at the medical school because they only offered so many slots for people of color. And then after winning that, she'd go to the business community to obtain scholarship money because our community was impoverished. And this was a cycle that went on year after year after year. And many of those students, I was tutored alongside with them. And I want to jump ahead. I became an international sportsman. And I'd been away for quite a few years on doing what I do. And I went home for a promotion, and Mom met me at the airport, and she gave me a big hug. And something felt different. So I pushed her away to look at her. And she looked different. And then I realized my mother had no breasts. I said, Mom, what happened? I said, well, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I went through a double mastectomy. I'd heard the rumors that she had not been well, but I did not hear that she had gone through a major surgery. This was total news. And I was upset. And I said, Mom, why was I not told? And her attitude was, you had enough of your own problems to worry about. You didn't have to worry about me. This shows you the strength of this woman. Then I said, as I was not there for you, who was? And she beamed and she started to name names. And I recognized some of those names because some of those names were kids I grew up with. I was tutored in their homes. So-and-so, these kids had gone to medical school. So-and-so became her oncologist. So-and-so became director of nursing. So-and-so became the anesthesiologist. Every person who touched my mother at that critical time in her life happened to be a former student. Now, these doctors did not come just to save some patient's life. They came to save the life of their teacher, a woman who had encouraged them, who had supported them, who had pushed them. No amount of insurance could have purchased the health care my mother got. Now, my mother recovered, and my mother did not become a teacher and help these young people get into university and become doctors because someday she will need their help to save her life. My mother became a teacher because she believed in our community. She believed that we had to have access to good health care to great education, and to open up all types of opportunities for our community. She just happened to be one recipient of several millions of folks who have lived in the city of Cape Town. One recipient of the benefactors of people coming together and working together for common interest and common cause. Like my mother, you are very similar. You have come to the world of technology, not because it's going to make you rich and famous. You've come to the world of technology because you believe in making a difference. You believe in lifting people up. Our colleagues here at Infotech, who help write the research papers, have an incredible opportunity, like my mother, to teach, to share, to innovate, to bring forth knowledge. It is that knowledge and the application of that knowledge that our folks at Infotech apply, that you as our members acquire and continue to build upon. You are the greater community. And it is through this partnership that we are able to lift all kinds of people across the globe. Now, my mother said to me that if you can ask 4 questions of yourself and emphatically say yes to those 4 questions, then life should be with less struggle. And so these questions have come near and dear to me. And that first question I ask, whatever we do, is it right for me? And everybody in this room can justify the answer, including a drug dealer. The second question is, what I do is right for my family. And again, we can justify the answer, and so does the drug dealer. The drug dealer, she can say, look at the nice house, or the nice cars, or the nice schools the kids go to. And most people in our society stop at these 2 questions. The third question is, what I do, is it right for my community? Now the drug dealer is in trouble. And today, we live in a global community thanks to you, thanks to your ability to connect us to furthest corners of the planet and maybe even the universe. And the fourth question is, what I do, is it right for the next generation? When I look around our world, I see so much potential. And if we were to focus on question 3 and question 4, by focusing on our communities as well as the next generation, imagine what the world can possibly look like. And the nice part is, you in this room, who are part of the Infotech family, are part of shaping our global communities and future generations. So we have an obligation, we have a responsibility to ensure that we do things for the right reasons, that we have transparency, that we protect the data, we avoid the breaches, and all the elements that come along in this world of technology. This is the foundation my mother gave me to live my life upon, and what I'm about to share with you now is the story of my journey. So as I said, I grew up in Cape Town, South Africa, disabled. At the age of 18 months, this hip diagnosis was made, and by the age of 5, I went through 3 surgeries, and that last surgery left me in a body cast from my ankle to my chest. I couldn't move in that body cast, a full body cast. If I wanted to see a different view, a nurse or doctor physically had to pick me up and shift me around. Now, I eventually came out of that body cast and I was hobbling around with the crutches. But whilst I lay in the hospital, in pain, not knowing what tomorrow would look like, a doctor stopped at my bedside and he said to me, "Son, what are you interested in?" Because I grew up in the coastal city of Cape Town, South Africa, and I heard the stories of my father and his time at sea. And I grew up seeing the Indian Ocean and seeing the Atlantic Ocean. I said boats. And a few days later, that doctor showed up with a whole stack of sailing magazines. Now, I was too young to read the words, but a picture paints 1,000 words. I saw photographs of yachts gliding through the ocean, and I thought, maybe someday I could be on a boat. I saw photographs of beautiful turquoise waters, lined with white sandy beaches and palm trees, the Caribbean. And I thought maybe someday I could experience a Caribbean island. What those photographs did was give me hope. And hope is the energy of change. Where we are today does not necessitate that this is all there is in life. When we lose hope, we end up with some of the challenges we have in the Middle East, where we may have suicide bombers because they have nothing to live for and something to die for. We cannot allow hope to perish. And in the world of change, you are driving the fastest change to happen in mankind. We live in the most exciting era of how rapid technology is shifting, is changing, is evolving. And you are on the cutting edge of ensuring that that happens. You are a part of bringing hope to this world, because it's how we use these applications. It is the kid in Africa who may not have access to proper schools, but may have access to a smartphone and to a Wi-Fi network, and may one day have access to G5 network, and suddenly has access to the entire world of commerce or knowledge. Or some other kid in another part of the world who has learned to trade phone minutes as a currency, eventually leading to a cryptocurrency or whatever the new digital form of currencies will become. You are part of this amazing journey of change. And so I knew I would leave the hospital bed and my world could change, even though now I was hobbling around on crutches or calipers. Now, my school friends play that game of soccer. And I stood on the sidelines, and I wanted to be with them. And they said, hey, you're a sissy. Go play with the girls. Well, I could not run and do what they did, and I didn't really quite get right playing with the girls. So I ended up using that opportunity to go to the public library and to read. My school library had no books. Now, the public library that I was supposed to go to because of my race group under apartheid was a one room with just a couple of shelves with even less books than those shelves in the whole building were, and nothing on my interest. My interest was the sea, was adventure, discovery. I found out that those books were in the whites-only library. That library was across the railway line in another part of town that I did not belong in. But I found the courage. I was encouraged by my mother to break the barriers and to go and seek the treasures of knowledge. And so I entered that library, and I stood in the aisle, and I found where the books on nautical adventure were. And I began reading those books standing in the aisle. And then I got busted. The librarian found me and asked me, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I'm interested in these books. I want to read them. He says, yes, I know. I've seen you here for several months. You do know that you can check out those books. And so I began to take these books out of the library. And eventually, at age 11, I came across a book that was to change my life forever. Joshua Slocum, Sailing Alone Around the World. The story of a man from Massachusetts who in 1895 to 1899 era had circumnavigated the world solo. And when I read this book, I knew that I wanted to become a sailor. I wanted to become an adventurer. And I remember going to my dad and saying, hey, Dad, please, can you have a boat? Can you have a boat? But on the money my father was earning, he could not afford to buy me a boat. But my mother said, son, stay reading, stay dreaming. The application of knowledge truly will be your power. I said, well, Dad, if you can't buy me a boat, at least will you take me to the local yacht club? Let me tell you about the local yacht club. Royal Cape Yacht Club. It was rich, it was elitist. The only time somebody from my community showed up in this yacht club was to wash dishes in the kitchen or fix broken gear on their boats, not to be an equal. But I was raised to have courage. I was raised not to accept the word no at face value. So I went from boat to boat and said, oh, please, will you take me sailing? No. Oh, please, will you take me sailing? No. How about you? Will you take me sailing? Will you? Yes. I got out there, and guess what? I got seasick. But I read that some of the best sailors got seasick. When I showed up on those boats, I may not have had practical knowledge of sailing. I had theoretical, academic knowledge. But what I did have was passion and enthusiasm. I was told, sit here and do as told. But I could not just sit there. I was so passionate about the sea and the opportunity that I wanted more. And I realized that through that enthusiasm, I brought value to the boat. As you build your IT teams, you can teach people skills. The soft and the hard skills are very available, but what you can't teach is passion and enthusiasm for the types of technology you're involved in and where you want to take your organization. It is easier to hold people back and say, slow down, than drag people along with you, slowing you down. Make sure your team is passionate about where you are going as an organization and is passionate to utilize the tools that you as CIOs, the tools that Infotech Research provides to you and the licenses to your people. Make sure they're passionate about harnessing this, because this is the team of where you can possibly go. There are no limitations to what you can achieve. I loved every moment of being on that boat, those different boats. And so I knew I have to own a yacht. I said to my school friends, one day I'll own a boat. What do you think they did? They laughed. They said, you'll never own a boat. They're rich people. You are poor. You are black. You are working class. You are disabled. They had labels. But again, I was not raised to have labels. So instead, I got a red jacket, a red sailing jacket, and I hung it where I could see it. And I said, someday, when I own a yacht, I am going to wear this jacket as a symbol of that success. I will stand on the boat wearing a sailing jacket. But till that day comes, each time somebody criticizes the dream, each time somebody says you can't do something, look at the symbol and recognize what sacrifices you have to make to achieve that big goal. I was exposed to many more things after that, including a solo race around the world, made famous by a sailor called Richard Broadhead. And when he came to the dock, I was a youngster on the dock, and when he needed a volunteer, I was the kid who landed on the boat. And we cleaned up the boat, and I asked him all kinds of questions, and he answered every question. And that became a defining moment, because I read about people like Harry Mitchell, a great solo sailor in the O-Star race. But here I met a real live adventurer, Richard Broadhead, who took the time to talk to me as a kid, to encourage me, not to tell me what I could not do, but to say, if you want to own a boat, if you want to race around the world, then you must do the O-Star race. This race made famous by Harry Mitchell to me. So suddenly I had a roadmap. And that roadmap became really important, because it's one thing to have a dream. It's another thing to have the tools and to have the vision that support the dream to get you to the finish line. And this is, again, where you have an opportunity by taking the products that Infotech gives you and to apply them to whatever those big-term goals are to help you navigate to where you shall end up. That was the encouragement that I got from Richard Broadhead. The same encouragement that you will get from the analysts, the researchers, the sales folks in the room here with you. And now I was focused. But there still was the issue of economics. Because there's a word we used with yacht ownership. People who own yachts are what? They're rich. They have money. They're not poor. I was not born rich. So I had to figure out, how would I earn that living? How would I create wealth to one day support the jacket? I happened to be involved in diving. To pay my yacht club dues, the train fare to get to the yacht club, I had to earn my own way, because my parents could not give me that. People dropped things over the side at their boat in a swimsuit, flippers or fins, and a face mask. I could go over the side at the dock and retrieve what they had lost, take that money I charged them, save it to buy a wetsuit, because those were cold waters. Now in that wetsuit, I could stay in the water longer and scrub their hulls. And now charge them a little bit more money, save that money to take scuba lessons, and eventually buy scuba equipment. Success doesn't happen just because we want something. It happens incrementally on how we build something. And that is how we scale things up. That's again why the basket of tools are so important, to have the right tools. And I continued that quest for knowledge. And eventually, I happened to read a magazine about diving. And there was an article about commercial divers and how commercial divers travel the world. I wanted to travel. The story was about the tight team that commercial divers were a part of. I'd learned my teamwork as a sailor. It spoke about how much money divers made, and I thought, wow, with that, I can afford to have the jacket, to own the yacht. I will be a diver. But the article was not done. The article went on to speak about the risks, how some divers lost limbs or even lost their lives. And I had to pause and ask a question. Am I suicidal? If you do something that you know possibly can kill you, isn't that a definition of suicide? But you know, I would rather take the risk and perish doing what I love than not take the risk and have a slow, slow death of mediocrity. There was no option. I was going to take the high road, the risky road. But there is a thing called minimizing risk. If I could go to the best school, obtain the best education, to be able to work with the best team, then I could mitigate some of that risk. And so finding the best people with the best tools is so vital, is so critical in our success. I found in my research that the best school was in Los Angeles, California, the furthest end of the planet from where I was in Africa. But I made a commitment to go and do this. And I'd love to have seen my school friends' expression when they got a postcard from Disney World. And the front was Mickey Mouse. On the back, I said, I wish you were here too. I came to this country with $350 in my pocket and a one-way plane ticket from the money I'd earned and saved from my diving. And I came here with the first month of tuition paid for by what my parents could borrow against their retirement and the house. But more important, I came here with an attitude that failure was not an option. Too many young people have so many options that they can't choose. They cannot commit. So as a result, they keep bouncing around. You who are parents, limit the options your kids have and make them work for something. Make them earn the right to be successful. It is not a given. It's an earned privilege. I graduated from commercial diving school, and I got to work all over the world. I mined diamonds on the ocean floor. I worked on the oil platforms. I'd gone from being a high-skilled, high-trained diver in the oil fields to doing a job of mining diamonds on the ocean floor, a job that some people said was beneath me. But I could not get a job in South Africa in the oil industry because of the color of my skin. But I could get a job mining diamonds because that was a job that was supposedly beneath my training and those of the types of oil field divers. I took that job. And I took it because there is no job beneath any of us. When you have a dream, when you have a vision, when you are focused, you do what you have to do to realize the goal. And you make a commitment to be the best at what it is that you do. I saved that money. I invested that money. And when I went on shore leave, the limited times in a year I actually came ashore, I would visit shipyards. And I'd go and do the numbers. I'd look at the data. And how much did that dream yacht cost? How much am I earning? What is the rate of return on my investments? And when I did the mathematics, it spat out a number. It said I'd be about 89 years of age before I could afford the dream yacht. The data never lies. But it's how we process the data that really matters. If I could change certain factors, I could change the outcome. The outcome I wanted was to own the yacht at a younger age. So increase the earnings, increase the rate of return, which increases the risk, or find another process. If I cannot analyze data, I cannot make an informed decision. You can't make informed decisions without your research. So I took a little different tack. Knowing what the data stated, I decided to change the mechanism, to change the strategy. Instead of buying the boat, I will design and build the boat. That changes the economic equation. And people said to me, you are no builder, you are no designer, give up. But I found somebody who was willing to help. And we began the journey of building a 38-foot yacht for the O-Star race. And people showed up on this yard, and they looked and they criticized. And they said, are you ever going to finish this boat? When I started the project, I only had enough money to start, not to finish the project. I'm sure you know what that feels like. But I found the team, and I found the tools, but more important, I had the belief that I could keep going and find the resources along the way as I proved my proof of concept. That was to work. And eventually, the time came when I was able to wheel the boat out of the yard, grab the sailing jacket, put it on, take the boat on a truck to the dock side, got the crane, and I launched my 38-foot yacht. It was a proud moment when that boat floated, and this became now the new game changer in my life. And so I'm on the boat. Now what? Where do I go from here? It was time to announce my entry in the O-Star race for 1992. Now, there were 3 predecessors who had done this event before, and the media at my press conference very quickly wanted to point out some harsh realities of the difference between my 3 predecessors, competitors, and myself. Each one had been a naval officer. I was a diver in the commercial industry. Each one was given the national yacht of the country. I built my own 38-foot boat. Each one was sponsored by the government. I was hunting for money. And each one of those 3 individuals was supported by the Sea Cadets and the Naval Cadets. I look behind me. There was nobody. Front page of the local newspaper read, Petersen sails floating coffin. And the article went on to tell what I lacked on the boat and what was the high risk I was going to take. And nobody wanted to associate their name with somebody who may perish on the seas because of this humble boat that lacked so much. So I faced a crisis. I could just accept where I was and say, this is it. I've reached my ceiling. And nobody would have faulted me if I stopped there. I was 21 years of age when I launched the boat. Even rich kids in South Africa at 21 years of age did not own a yacht. But my story would end there. So I could not take that option. So instead, I decided that I had no choice but to leave my home waters and to sail into the distant unknown, to the blue yonder, and find another way to get to the start line and the support. But I had a few challenges. I had no money. And worse than that, I had to go from South Africa to England. Kind of know where England is on the chart. But how do you get from South Africa to England? It's called navigation. Now, there's a thing that we take for granted today called GPS. We did not have affordable GPS in 1989 when I was making this voyage. And I could not find a way to get any of my hands on that technology. But I did find a way to gain my hands on some very ancient technology. I ended up buying a sextant. People like Magellan, Ernest Shackleton, had used this type of device to find their way across the ocean. And I bought a book, this book, Celestial Navigation for Yachtsmen. And with these 2 items on my boat, I bid my family goodbye and set sail out to sea. Now, don't ask me where I was for the first 7 to 10 days. I was lost. I was busy reading this book, trying to figure out how to use this device. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody else believe in you? We have to prove what we are capable of by taking the necessary steps to realize those goals. These are big steps into the unknown. But this is what our character is about. This is what is in the treasure chest of our experiences. But life will test you. So here I am on the high seas. I'm sailing along. I figured out how to use the sextant. I'm lonely. I want to talk to somebody. Scanning the horizon. I don't have a satellite telephone before those days. And the boom, which carries the mainsail, suddenly comes flopping over the deck, just like a golf club would go to golf ball, And I stood up, and the boom hits me across the forehead like the golf club hitting the golf ball. My head was split open. The eyebrow completely split open to where I was gushing blood. I could even see the bone of my eyebrow. I was in deep, deep trouble. I now was fighting for my life. The nearest island and doctor, 800 miles away. I had no medical kit on the boat. I had no distress beacon to say this boat in this location is in trouble. All I thought I had on the boat was a rusty sail needle and sailing twine. Could you stitch your forehead back together with one eye swollen shut on a rolling boat, blinding headache with a rusty needle and sailing twine? Can you? Nah, nor could I. So I had a huge barrier. But if I'm to survive, I've got to dig into the treasure chest of life. And I remember reading and learning in school, if you have a bleeding wound and apply pressure to it, it's going to stop bleeding. If you can hold the wound together for long enough, it will coagulate and grow back together again. And with that, I came up with my idea. Hold pressure, hold together. And so I got a clothes peg. And I sailed 800 miles with my forehead pinned together like this. It held it together, it applied the pressure, the bleeding stopped, the wound grew back together again. 800 miles later, I met the doctor. He looked at the wound and said, "Son, your wound is fine, but you need psychiatry help." But you know what? When you are desperate, when your back is up against the wall, when you have no other choice, that is sometimes the best time to innovate. Our survival depends upon our ability to innovate, to find whatever those solutions are, and then to build upon them. I lived another day. And because of surviving, I sailed on not to England. I had a few more challenges. I ended up in Ireland by default. Didn't plan to go there, didn't plan to stay. But that's where I ended up. And in this journey in Ireland, I met an Irish lass. Her name is Gwen. And I fell hopelessly in love with her. And we became for a while inseparable. But I'm a sailor. And you know what we sailors do? We sail away, which means we also break hearts. Well, when I sailed away, I had the support of the Irish nation. The first time a group of people came in behind me to help. And I had the support of Gwen, the love of this Irish woman who let me go. And I arrived in England, and I ended up on the same dock as my hero, Harry Mitchell, getting ready to do the O-Star race. And when I saw him on the boat for the first time, I was in awe of looking at my hero. And I remember walking over to his boat, 2 boats down, and he was on the deck doing something. And he saw me, and he looked at me, and I stuck out my hand, and I said, "Mr. Mitchell, I've come to meet you, greet you, race against you, and beat you." And from that moment forward, Harry Mitchell and I became firm friends. The race ended. I arrived in Newport, Rhode Island, 27 days later, to become the 4th South African to finish this race. And Harry Mitchell was on the dock waiting to take my dock lines. And so I did a little analysis. Why did my competitor beat me? So the first thing I did was look at the size of his boat. He had a 40-footer, I had a 38-footer. And we know it's not about size, it's all about strategy. As medium-sized, small-sized, big-sized companies, your survival depends upon what is the strategy you execute. What are the tools you have to use? So size is an excuse. Next thing I looked at was Harry's age. He was in his mid-60s. I was now 24 years of age. 40 years of age difference between him and I. The things that he'd forgotten, I still had to learn. And so Harry said something profound. He said, "It is your dream to build a boat. It is your dream to sail across an ocean. It is your dream to enter and finish this yacht race. Now what?" You see, when we have success, we can become very sometimes complacent. But we can't allow complacency to hold us where we are. We continuously have to look beyond the horizon, because where we are, those plateaus become awfully crowded. And I believe there's a saying, a wise man learns from his mistakes. Have you heard that? Do you agree with that? Do you? Wrong. I disagree. I believe that a smart person finds a wise person because we don't have time to make all the mistakes. And so Harry Mitchell became my mentor. He had made the mistakes that I could learn from and not repeat. And this is why the meeting here, Infotech Live, is so important, because there's a lot of very wise people in the room who've made a lot of mistakes. But let us be smart. Let us learn from each other's mistakes, not to repeat those mistakes. Let's find a way around these issues. And also, that's collective knowledge, the knowledge of each other and what you've done as CIOs, along with the knowledge of the Infotech Research Group and what they have gained, and the different analysts from the different components of the different research papers and research models. There is some amazing brain power right here at this live event. We cannot miss this opportunity, because it's through these opportunities that we will go to those next plateaus, those next levels. Harness the networking opportunities that give you by showing up here and in Las Vegas and in Toronto and the various events that will happen with Infotech Live. So Harry became my mentor. And Harry said to me, "You've done this. Now what?" And I knew that he was attempting to race around the world again. He had made twice an attempt. He was going for his third round. And I said, "In 1994, I will meet you in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm going to race against you, and this time I am going to beat you." So I went back to Ireland, back to Gwen, and told her that I was entering the longest race on the planet known to mankind, 27,000 miles alone around the world. And I wanted her to head up my support crew, help me put the sponsorship deals together, help me build the new boat. Well, not everything worked out the way we wanted it, except for the one fact: she did become the head of my support crew. I may be a solo sailor, but I cannot do this without the folks who help build the boat, the folks who help make the sails, the folks who install the electronics and keep me educated in the use of that electronics, and all the other things that Gwen helped pull together. There was this huge team who rallied in behind to help me figure out, how do I get A, to the start line, and B, to the finish line. And here again at Infotech, you have the opportunity of creating this incredible team. Many times you feel like solo sailors in the office, overwhelmed. But the tools, the papers, the research, the blueprints are there to help make your job easier. Well, I could not build a new boat, could not buy a second-hand boat, because I don't have enough money. Couldn't find it. So I'm frustrated. I'm even angry. And I remembered that the emotion I felt at that time, the old boat I'd hauled out of the water to save money. Gwen and I were living on the boat. And we had less than a year to go to the start of the race, and I'm trying to figure out, how do I get there? Then I had an aha moment. The minimum size requirement for the round the world race is 40 foot. How big is my boat? 38 foot. So really, how big is my problem? 2 feet. 2 feet. I rushed out. I got plywood, fiberglass mat, epoxy resin, paint. We stretched the back of the boat. We repainted the boat. And I showed up at the world's greatest yacht race in my new 40-footer. Truly, where there's a will, there is a way. But I could not do that without having the right mindset, without knowing certain facts, building the right team to support me, to get me to the start line. You cannot, as members, you cannot go to the next level in your organization without the right tools. You have this opportunity to gain incredible tools so that you can now navigate to wherever else you have to go. For me, that was the race around the world. September of 1994, first leg of the race. Leave Charleston and head to Cape Town, South Africa. 8,000 miles, 4 legs in the race. Just focus on the first leg now. And I raced against Harry Mitchell. And I ended up beating Harry into Cape Town. Harry came last, I came second last. It doesn't matter about where you come. What matters the most is firstly knowing who your real competition is, and secondly, showing up. You can't win if you never show up. So Gwen helped me prepare the boat for the second leg. Now it's South Africa to Australia. So Harry Mitchell and I race each other. There's 20 boats in the fleet. Well, the fleet had dwindled already a bit. And we are pushing hard into the Southern Ocean. And deep in the Southern Ocean, some 2,000 miles from South Africa, I get hit by a major storm. And my boat got turned upside down. And when my boat popped back upright in the storm, my mast was broken. I was in trouble. Under what's called a jury rig. I got some sail back up, and I realized that I could not continue on 7,000 miles more to Australia. So I turned around and I went back to South Africa. And I said to Harry Mitchell, I've got to make some hard decisions here. Keep going, finish this race as I decide. Back to the analysis. I got some money for a new mast. Gwen had flown back from Australia to South Africa. We repaired the boat. And then I looked at the data, the weather pattern, the meteorology. I knew the distance from South Africa to Australia, and as the fleet had left Australia, they were heading across the Pacific Ocean for Cape Horn to Uruguay. I knew that total distance. I know exactly how many miles per day my boat can cover. So based on that information, I knew how many days I would be at sea. Then I overlaid those number of days at sea to the climatology to look at what is the weather pattern. And with that information, I made the decision. I realized that I would get to Cape Horn in the middle of winter when the average wind strength was about 100 miles per hour, hurricane strength. And I had to ask myself the question, am I suicidal? And the answer is no. The data told me that that was a foolish risk. And so I trusted the data. I decided to retire from the race. It was a tough decision, but it was the right decision to make. Without the knowledge, you can't make these critical decisions. And so I said, Gwen, the fleet will be in Uruguay. I would like to sail the last leg of the Atlantic Ocean. Why don't you cross the Atlantic from South Africa to South America, and then you fly back and I sail the last leg solo? She agreed to make the passage with me. And part of the way into that passage, we got distressing news. A distress beacon had been activated in the Pacific Ocean. The Chileans sent out their search and rescue aircrafts to the search zone of where this beacon was transmitting from. They would spend hours flying there, about 40 minutes of fuel to search, with barely enough fuel to fly hours back and land. They flew many sorties. We arrived in Uruguay for a further update on the search. They had called the search off. Sadly, they were searching for my friend and hero, Harry Mitchell. Harry Mitchell was lost at sea. We never found his boat or the beacon or anything about what had happened to him other than he had encountered near 100-mile-an-hour winds. But Harry Mitchell left behind a powerful message for you and I. Live each and every day as if it is your last day, because someday you shall be right. We truly have to seize the moments. We cannot live thinking we have unlimited time. We don't. Carpe diem. So the heavy heart, I sailed the last leg. I couldn't sit around for 3 years to the next start of the next round of the world race. So I entered the O-Star again. Gwen helped prepare the boat. I raced from England back to Newport, Rhode Island. 2 days out of the English Channel, I encountered major fog. And I keep pushing the boat in this major fog. And about 9 days into the race, I get hit by a Russian freighter. And my boat has a huge hole in it. And my boat is sinking. And US Coast Guard says, get off the boat and climb onto the freighter. Well, I could not abandon my boat. That boat was my home. I had no insurance. It's everything I owned in the world. I was not going to give up that dream. So instead, I got a huge pump. And every hour, I'd go to the front of the boat. And I'd pump. I'd pump hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water out of the boat. Take 15 to 20 minutes. Then go up on the deck, trim the sail towards the nearest land, Nova Scotia. Does water stop coming in? No. So I go back again and pump. Another 15 to 20 minutes. Can fix a meal, come back and pump. Can grab some sleep, come back and pump. I pump 15 to 20 minutes every hour. I did this 24 times a day, and I did this for 15 days. Tony, how'd like to do that for 15 days?
Oh, my goodness.
It's hard work, but hard work does pay off. When you really have a dream, when you have a goal, you do what it takes to get to the finish line. I finished third. I had incentive to get to the finish line. Now, I decided to enter the 27,000-mile race again in the same boat. Gwen helped prepare the boat. September of 1998 came along. I raced. First leg of the race, Cape Town, 14 days faster, beating many multi-million-dollar competitors with my humble boat. Second leg, this time we went to Auckland, New Zealand. No big deal, I got frostbite, that's all that really big time happened to me. Third leg, New Zealand, across the Pacific Ocean, around Cape Horn to Uruguay. That was the scary leg. For centuries, boats have gone around Cape Horn. Not everybody makes it. Harry Mitchell, it was his dream to see Cape Horn. He perished. When I was 300 miles from Cape Horn, I encountered this major storm. And in this major storm, hurricane strength winds, I pulled all my sails down. And I'm surfing off these monster waves, huge waves. And every few minutes my boat is turned upside down. Mast complete in the water, keel complete in the sky. Then the boat would pop back upright, surf off the next wave, another knockdown. I went through 38 knockdowns. And the storm raged for 12 hours. And I stopped counting after 4 hours, 38 knockdowns. And I was wondering, would this boat be my floating coffin? Or am I right to dream?
Yeah, that's a Roger, and especially with the barometers falling. Manoro, is your barometer falling as well, over?
On March 11th, 1999, 300 miles before Cape Horn, Neal's dream trip turns into a nightmare. A massive storm hits. Winds are as strong as a hurricane. The waves smother him as he rides out the storm in the cockpit. Tethered to the deck with a 2-foot safety harness, he pulls down all his sails and tries to steer his boat through the churning swells. Repeatedly, his boat is knocked over.
Unfortunately, this is the result of all the knockdowns. We've taken sort of gear all over the place. Lockers broken. So it's been pretty tough.
2 days after surviving the storm, Neal sights Cape Horn. At last, he experiences the awe others wrote about in the books he read as a child. He feels immense joy. After all, more people have traveled into outer space than have sailed past this place alone.
Well, there she is, the Horn and I. Sort of what a sight. And it's just been absolutely great to be here. It's taken 17 years of dreaming. It's taken a lot of planning, a lot of preparation. It's taken the support of many people. My sponsors, my family, most important Gwen. But we are here. I think of Harry Mitchell, who gave his life for this site. And a few minutes ago I paid tribute to my friend Harry. You know, it's a very special place, this, the bottom of the world, the edge of the world. And to get here takes courage, perseverance, determination, dedication. It takes a dream. I'm 31 years of age, and I've lived my dream now. It's taken hard work, but it was worth it. I've risked my life through 77 knots wind storms, but it was worth it. I hope every young person has an opportunity to live their dream as I've now lived mine. To look at this magic piece of land.
In March of 1999, I rounded Cape Horn, and I had taken on one of the most daunting, impossible tasks. Let me put some stats to you. More than 8,000 people in the history of mankind have gone to the summit of Mount Everest. About 750 people have traveled so far into outer space in the multi-billion-dollar space program. In the history of mankind, less than 250 people have sailed or raced solo around the world via the Southern Ocean and Cape Horn. In March of 1999, I joined the most exclusive group of adventurers ever to exist on this planet. Not to prove my critics wrong, but to prove to myself that I was right to dream, that I could take a boat some call the floating coffin to the furthest part of the world and survive and build a life upon that. I challenge you to find your place in the world of where you can go to what you can achieve. Now, I arrived in Uruguay completing the circumnavigation, but not the race. Gwen was there to help prepare for the last leg. And then she asked me if the boat was ready. And I said, yes, the boat is ready. She said, well, I'm leaving. I said, you mean tomorrow when the race starts, you're going as we planned, as we discussed? She said, no, I'm leaving us, and now. I didn't see this coming. I had proposed marriage 3 years ago the first time. The last time I proposed marriage was earlier that week. I thought she was going to be my lifetime partner. I thought we were going to grow old together. I told her how much I loved her. It wasn't enough. And I watched her walk down the dock, and I've never seen her since that day. I was devastated. I had to climb on that boat and sail that last leg, knowing she would never be on a finish line ever again waiting for me. I don't know how I got through it, but we get through these things. And eventually, there was the finish line. I had just raced 27,000 miles around the world. I'd been 9 months from the time I'd left Charleston to return to Charleston, South Carolina. Collectively, I'd been at sea for 195 days, 16 hours in total isolation. And when I arrived at the dock was sinking under the weight of the largest spectator crowd, mostly made up of young students, young children, who had come to see me finish. And I thought back 18 years. 18 years previously, I was a kid on the dock, watching Richard Broadhead sail into Cape Town in the very first solo race around the world. Richard Broadhead said to me that I could be anybody, I could do anything. And I did. And he has no idea of what I did. You don't know how your actions and what you do will have an impact on others who are watching. So therefore, we have an obligation to ensure that we are always of the highest of ethical standards, the highest of transparency, that we are truly leaders who's going to bring not just the future generation of technology, but the future generation of young civil leaders who recognize each other to make this world a better place. You are a part of this. And then there was the prize-giving party. The best night and the worst night. You see, it was the best night because I received my trophy for finishing this race. So few people finish this race and hold that trophy. Harry Mitchell died, as many other competitors in the history of the race have died dreaming of holding that trophy. But it was sad for a different reason. Gwen was not in the audience to watch me receive that trophy. You see, there's no way I could have been on that finish line had she not been in my life, had she not been a part of my support crew, the head of that support crew. There's no way I'd be here at Infotech with you today in Orlando had she not been in my life. We all do things, and we get a lot of attention and glory for what it is that we are doing. But the people who are behind the scenes, who make the real sacrifices, who do the hard work, who do things unselfishly, they are truly the heroes that enable us to be successful. And we cannot forget who they are, because we are one big team and one big family. And then I moved ashore into a cottage. I had to get back out there and date. I had to try and figure out what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I was working on writing my autobiography, Journey of Hope Merchant. And I came home from a date one evening, only to discover my house had burnt down. I lost everything. The manuscripts, my photographs, my trophies, all of it was gone. The only few things to survive was this pile, the 2 books and the remnants of the sextant I showed you earlier. And I was wondering, what's the good in this? I've lost my girlfriend, I've now lost this rented home. And I'm driving back to the house, and the transmission of my car falls out the day after the fire. Man, am I supposed to be ashore? So I called a car dealer friend because I now need wheels. And I told him my budget, and I told him I wanted a reliable car, and he laughed at me because my budget and reliable didn't go together. But he said he'll see what he can do. 2 days after the fire, he calls me up and says, guess what? A car just came onto the lot today. You better come and get it. So I phoned my various friends looking for a lift to the car dealer, and they had work. I phoned my various dates. I get voicemail. When my telephone rings and a stranger he's on the telephone and said, hey, I just read yesterday's newspaper about the fire. What can I do to help? And I said, can you give me a lift to the car dealer? On August the 7th, 1999, at 5 p.m., my life was transformed forever, because that is when I laid eyes on the stranger. And I said, wow, she's cute. We went to the car dealer, we got the car, we went to a movie, we went to dinner. And 5 months after meeting her, I ended up marrying her. I want to introduce you to my wife, darling Christy Petersen. Come up here and join me, darling. Thank you. When you end up in the right relationship, 1 and 1 is not equal to 2. 1 and 1 truly becomes the 11th power. When you truly find that true partnership, and you marry that partnership to what those big dreams and what those big goals are, it's absolutely amazing of where you can go and what you can do together. Darling and I flew in from the Dominican Republic yesterday. That's where our Caribbean home is. And we've been traveling all over the world, making a difference. We have a beautiful yacht, which we keep currently in Cartagena, and we're on our way to the Pacific Ocean, the South Pacific, when I got a phone call from Gord saying, will you come and help us over at Infotech and be a part of our meetings and be a part of working with the analysts and doing some of the training. So I put the South Pacific on hold to be a part of your family. And I'm very proud of the people I've come to meet, the caliber of not just the Infotech family, but also the customers I've come to meet in this room this morning. And it's, what can we do together? Where can we go? How can we change the world of technology? The rate of change is so fast, and the opportunities are so huge. And as my mother said to me, there are no limitations to possibilities. If you work hard, if you work smart, if you build the right team, the world truly is your oyster. And so with that, I have come to realize that I could carry baggage, or I could take all these experiences and put it inside what I call my treasure chest of life, because I believe in life there are no barriers, there are only solutions, and you're part of that. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.